everything started to change. And this started with a resolve. I took responsibility for my life. I took a decision. I said, now, no more. And do you know that for the first time in my life, second semester ended, my results catapulted to 4.5. That second semester, year 3. I entered year 4. In year 4, I think in my first semester, if I'm not mistaken, my result was about 4.4 or 4.5. I'll call on George, okay, Ebenezer, to please give, okay, the bio for the speaker for today, okay? Please remember to mute your mics. George, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome all. Our speaker today, Mike Iwegbu, is a field operations engineer in the oil and gas sector with over 28 years of proven work experience, of which about 14 have been in senior management positions. His career has predominantly been in the oil and gas upstream field operations. However, he developed interest in renewable energy and energy transition, which led him to take further research studies for a doctoral degree in energy, economics, management, and policy. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and also a member of several professional bodies, including Society of Petroleum Engineers, SPE International, National Association of Corrosion Engineers, Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN. Engineer Mike has high drive enthusiasm for learning and is capable of independent research. He has published several papers in his field of endeavor and also won a few awards at both national and international levels for his published research work. He has worked and studied in several countries, including Gabon and France, where he undertook a research work for the development of a corrosion and erosion monitoring model at Pau Research Center in France. As part of his contribution to the younger generation and society at large, he leads a mentorship program for young adults and persons requiring mentorship and direction. He is also involved in a lot of volunteering and academic support projects for the less privileged. He was an adjunct lecturer as a corporate social responsibility program, delivering free petroleum engineering lectures at the University of Port Harcourt between 2006 and 2007. Along with his wife, engineer Dr. Mike founded the Aspire for Excellence Foundation, an organization with the objective of bringing positive change to the world, one person at a time. Let us celebrate and welcome our host. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you all. I'm glad to have you all tonight. Thank you very much. Tonight, we will be looking at personal leadership becoming the architect of your life. I will endeavor to put this in the slideshow format. Sometimes it gets stuck, but let's see how it goes. Okay, please confirm to me. Okay, I guess it should be okay now, correct? Yes. Okay. All right, let's go. Tonight, like I said, we'll be talking about personal leadership becoming the architect of your life. Okay, this is what we'll be talking about tonight. I want to start by giving a little bit, a little reality check. And I just want to start by asking an introspective question to everyone who is connected here tonight. The first question I would ask is, if your life stays exactly as it is right now for the next 5 years, remember we're in 2026, right now we're in May 2026. And if we say your life stays like this from May 2026 to May 2031, the question I would like to ask you is this: will you be proud of your life, or will you have remorse or be regretful of your life? It's quite a technical question. You will be proud of your life if you believe that you have accomplished a good part of your purpose, or your life is headed in the direction in which it should be. However, you would be regretful if you believe your life as it is today, it's not heading in the right direction. But the good news is this: today, you can take a decision based on the things we're going to talk about. Remember, we are talking about personal leadership today. We're talking about becoming the architect of your life. And what we are saying is this: there are conscious, intentional actions you can take right here, right now in your life to be headed in the direction of your purpose, or to be headed in the direction in which you want to find yourself. I will start with a brief story, because I schooled here in Nigeria for the first part of my life. Of course, I've schooled outside this country, in Europe and in other places. However, but the vast majority of my schooling was done in this country. I want to start by telling you one experience I had when I was in the university. My third year, first semester, to be precise. I can't forget that day. Neither can I forget what happened, because for me, it was a turning point. You know, when you hear of Eureka, when you hear of the Archimedes principle, you know the word Eureka. It came, okay, when you hear of the Archimedes principle, Eureka. My Eureka in my life, my turning point started in my third year, first semester. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what happened that day. I think this was second semester in my third year. What I'm talking about, it's somewhere close to 1992 thereabout. Okay, 1992 thereabout. I walked up to school one day just to take lectures as usual, like every other student would take their lectures. And I still remember my lecturer. As at then, he was Engineer Dr. O. Onyemobi. He became a professor eventually at the end of the day. He asked a question. In fact, he made a statement in my class. I was in third year, second semester, as I was telling you. He said, the best student in this class, he called the name of the best student. It was someone else. And he called him. I think, I can't remember if he had 4.5 or 4.8 or something like that. I'm talking about his CGPA, his grade point average. And he called him and he said, this was the best student in this class. And I'm so proud about what this boy has achieved. That was supposed to be an ordinary statement. But I tell you, that statement opened the lid for me. Right there. Can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. Right there and then in the class, I asked myself a question. Why am I not the best student in this class? That was question number one. I decided to take responsibility. And let me first even tell you a story. Because actually, I got admission to read engineering in the university. However, school resumes in September, like you know, the resumption cycle in Nigerian universities as at that time. I didn't put my foot in the university until after 3-4 months. I landed in the university mid-January. Yes, mid-January 1991. And in fact, as I was just pulling my bag through the gate, somebody walked up to me and said, are you in year one? I said, yes. He said, hey, they are writing Maths 101 test in the hall. I didn't even know whether to leave my bag and run to the hall. I had not registered. I had not done something. Long story short, my year one was catastrophic in terms of the results. I finished my year one with what is called a 1.6 CGPA, cumulative grade point average. That was number one. I finished my year one, I think, having a receipt in Maths 102, and I think what you have, Chem 102. I just begin to tell you these stories so that you begin to understand how life has panned out. And at the end of year one, I was beaten, I was flat, and in fact, many of the mathematics I saw there were things that I ran away from in school. In secondary school, I had been asked to do ADMAS. I said, no, ADMAS is too difficult. In fact, I registered for ADMAS. If you do ADMAS, if you do sciences, you know that ADMAS is quite superior to maths. And when I saw ADMAS was quite superior to mathematics, I told myself, hey, I'm getting out of here. For those of you who were born in the 70s and the 60s, you know that there was an advert they used to do in Nigeria those days. I think in the early 80s, NTA. It talks about Andrew. Andrew said, oh man, I'm checking out. I'm checking out of Nigeria. There are no good roads. There is no water. You can even drink one little bottle of soft drink. If you remember, those were the commercials in the 1980s when NTA was about the only station we had about that time. Andrew said, man, I'm checking out. And when I started doing ADMAS and I saw how difficult ADMAS was, I said, man, I'm checking out. And indeed, I checked out of ADMAS, only to come in the university in my first year to meet that the devil I was running away from was what I met in my first year, engineering student. And I asked myself, who sent me a message? What am I doing here? And that's why sometimes in English they tell you that he that fights and runs away, he does what? He lives to fight another day. And there I asked myself, I said, I wish I faced this ADMAS in my secondary school. It would have been a walk in the park. I was in a university. I was in a new program. I was trying to adapt. I came 3 or 4 months late. And at the end of first semester, I had a receipt in Maths 102 and Chem 102. With deflated ego, I began to ask myself a question. Can I survive? And in fact, in those days in my university, if I was 1.6, I told you in year one. If you had 1 point and below, in the second year, the university will paste all the people who had below 1 point. And they will advise you to withdraw from the university. And many people, they will see either your name or your score, and they will go and write scholarship by your name. They will say, let's say 13 people were asked to leave the university. They will, for the 13, one will say, for the first one, he has gotten Shell scholarship. The second one, he has gotten Mobile scholarship. The third one, he has gotten Chevron scholarship. That was another way students used to mock people in campus in those days. And this was my year one. I'm just telling you a real life story. Probably if I have some time one day, I probably put these things in a book. That was my first real shock in my year one in the university. Now, let me backtrack to my year. So you'll find out that I started my CGPA very, very low in the university. I did year one like that. Took the receipts and the courses that I failed, that I didn't pass, and I struggled a little bit. I improved a bit in my year two. I did my first semester year three until when that lecturer came into the class, second semester year three, and he said, this student was the best student. Bingo, a light bulb flashed into my head. And I asked myself, but the Bible says we shall be the head and not the tail. I left that class that day. I walked up to my hostel. I'm telling you what happened to me. I knelt down by the side of my bed. In fact, I didn't even have a bed, let me tell you, because I was being squatted. If you were in school those days, you know what a squatter is. I didn't have accommodation, so there was somebody who had a legal accommodation, who, you know, it's like attachment. Those days in campus, we had different names for them. If you were the legal occupant of the room, you were the legal owner. If you brought your friend or your brother who was not the legal occupant to live with you, he was the squatter. And in those days in campus, if you, a squatter, saw somebody who was roaming around, who didn't have a place, and you brought him into that same room, he was a loafer. So you see, we had original occupants, squatter, and a loafer. But I was a squatter. So I knelt down by the side of my bed and I told myself, I said, hey, how am I going to go through this university? Third year, because I did engineering, so it's a 5-year course. I've gone halfway. How am I going to graduate from this university? As at that time, my results, I think it was a 2.2 or something thereabout. Okay, somebody is saying OAU. Okay, OAU, you use the same thing. Okay, great. And eventually, I told myself, I said, hey, why did the lecturer not call my name as the best student in this class? Now, today, I'm going to take a decision. I will be the best student in this class. It was just a choice. And I stood up and I said, hey, from now henceforth, my results, I am going to do my best and I'm going to have a 4.5 or whatever, but I am not getting out of this university with this kind of results. There and then, everything started to change. And this started with a resolve. I took responsibility for my life. I took a decision. I said, now, no more. And do you know that for the first time in my life, second semester ended, my result catapulted to 4.5. That second semester, year 3. I entered year 4. In year 4, I think in my first semester, if I'm not mistaken, my result was about 4.4 or 4.5. I went for IT second semester. In engineering. You do ITs in your year 2, in your year 3, and in your year 4. 3 times you have to do ITs if you studied engineering. I don't know about other universities, but that's how my university used to do as at then. Final year, I made 4.5. In fact, I didn't eventually become the best student, but I became the second best student in my department, and I had a 2.1. Unbelievable. And this is someone who started from a 1.6 with 2 carryovers in his year 1. So if I tell you about personal leadership, becoming the architect of your life, I'm not talking theory. I'm telling you something I have gone through. Here, we are going to be talking about the pillars. I will share 3 different pillars. Okay, I will talk about the enemies of personal leadership. I'm also talk about the acronym of the architect, called the architect of personal leadership, as we go ahead. Now, what is personal leadership? And from then, it became an attitude, it became a habit. And what happened from that year 3 second semester, my life eventually catapulted and eventually took a different turn in life. But I can tell you the day, I can tell you the time, I can tell you how it happened. Just because one teacher, one lecturer said something and it spiraled a dynamo inside of me. I'm grateful to that lecturer today, because if he never launched that challenge, I would never have taken the responsibility. And that responsibility eventually catapulted my life, like I told you. Now, personal leadership is not about a position. So I'm not talking about a political position or a position wherever. I'm talking about self-governance. I'm talking about self-management. I'm talking about self-control. I'm talking about you taking a responsibility for your life to say, hey, my life is going in this direction. I do not want my life to continue like this in the next 5 years. What can I do today to affect the outcome of my life tomorrow? And it always starts with choices, decisions, and it always starts with that. Now, Personal leadership, like I said, it's taking responsibility for your life's outcomes. You need to first understand that the outcome of your life, it's not the responsibility of your father, your mother, your auntie, your sisters. It's your own responsibility. I happen to mentor a lot of youths. I, in fact, had a session with a number of youths this morning. And sometimes I hear a number of them say, in fact, the youths I was mentoring this morning, I asked them a question. I said, if you had a choice to, before you were born, to say you want to be born in Nigeria, in US, in Canada, in Australia, and Nigeria, how many of you will choose Nigeria? And almost nobody raised up his hand to say Nigeria. And I understand why. But you first need to understand, because and that's what we're going to see in the second slide. You need to understand that, yes, we may have been born into an environment we probably do not like, but your ultimate responsibility, it's not to complain about the environment. Your ultimate responsibility is to work on what is called your circle of control. But we're going to look at that later on. And life is about taking responsibility for your life outcomes. If you forget my name, I will forgive you, but never forget taking responsibility. It can start small. It doesn't have to be something big, but just take a decision. And the context of what I'm trying to talk about here today is until you lead yourself, you cannot lead anything meaningful. It always starts with yourself. Because, when children are small, what do you want to be? I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a pharmacist. I want to be a nurse. I want to be this. Children are very virgin. Their minds are completely open. And at that time, that child really can be exactly what he or she wants to be. But as the child begins to grow old, the child begins to learn about fear. He begins to learn about unbelief. He begins to learn about obstacles. He begins to learn about many things. And eventually, the child doesn't live out his dream. Not because the child really didn't want to do that, but because of the bag and baggages the child has picked up. However, it always begins with what? With leading yourself. Okay? Now, if you see the next slide, what is the problem? Why do many people feel stuck? That is supposed to be stuck. Sorry. Okay. One, because in Nigeria today, many people complain about a lot of things. And if you had the choice to be born in Nigeria, we're about 78 or almost 80 people on the call here tonight. I don't know if 5 or 10% of us will choose to be born in Nigeria. I am not sure. But however, and I think this is coming from Stephen Covey. If you've read his book, Stephen Covey has a leadership framework in his book, The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. He talks about 3 circles. 3 circles. One of them is called the circle of concern. The second one is called the circle of influence. And the last one is called the circle of what? The circle of control. And what he is actually trying to say is that many people in life, they focus on what they cannot control. And when you focus on what you can't control, you increase your stress. I give you an example. I bought fuel the other day. Petrol today, for the life of me, I never thought that by this time we'll be buying petrol at 1,380. Some people even buy 1,400 petrol today. The question I have is that complaining about the price of petrol because of Iran and because of the US, the truth about it is it's a circle of concern, but the truth about it is you have no direct control over it. And the more you spend your time in a circle of concern, the more at the end of the day, you feel helpless. The more you increase your stress and the more your anxiety increases. For example, if you're getting worried about the oil price has increased, government regulation, you're complaining about the weather, you're complaining about the global economic pressures. Yes, you care about them, but my question is, you cannot change it. If you could change it, you would have changed it. And this is a common reality today in Nigeria. Why is Nigeria not doing well? We blame the government. Why is Nigeria not doing well? You blame the economy. Okay. I am not saying that the leaders do not have a responsibility. Please do not get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say is you are finite and you have individual resources. Your time is your resource. You shouldn't be spending most of your time in your circle of concern. Rather, you should spend 80% of your time in your circle of influence or in your circle of control. Your circle of influence are things you cannot control directly, but you can affect them through your actions, through your relationships, or through your leadership. Other people's behavior to you, other people's actions, what people think, how many people follow you. If you see how many people follow you, your likes, those are your circle of influence. And your team, how do people react to you? You can't control them directly. However, you can affect them through your actions, your relationships, and your leadership. Especially if you're in an organization, or if you're with other stakeholders, or if you're in a workplace, something like that, or you're in a family. Those things are within your circle of influence. And they strictly belong to your circle of influence. You don't control it, however, you can shape it. If you want to spend more time in your circle of control and in your circle of influence. But let's get down last of all, which is your circle of control. So, in fact, I will ask you, what pisses you off today? What worries you? What gives you concern? Break them down into three. Circle of concern, circle of influence, and your circle of control. And put them into the right boxes. If the oil price is a concern to you, I'm sorry, it's in your circle of concern. There's not much you can do. You are not the one who went to bomb Iran, and Iran has blocked the Strait of Hormuz. You can really not do much about that. However, if you focus on your circle of control, and by your circle of control, I'm talking about your thoughts, your mindsets. Do you know, let me tell you something. Do you know someone said, the final outcome of your life, it not eventually happens to you, but it is your response to what happens to you. There are people who have had a headache, and unfortunately they have gone because they have fear. And I think it was in Shakespeare's book, he said, cowards die many times before their death, but the valiant never die but once. When there are people who have cancer and things that are heavy stuff, and they beat it and they survive, it's all in the heart. It's all in the way you approach life. It's all in the way you approach it. I went somewhere this evening, and a lady was talking about her husband who had cancer. And cancer, it's something very serious. But the way she was talking about it and the way they are managing it, you could see that they are going through pains, but you could see that despite the pains, there is grace in what they are doing. And they try to avoid thinking about it. They try to avoid worry. That's what I'm talking about. There are some things that are within the circle of control. Your attitude, your emotions, your decisions, your behavior, your actions, your time, your priorities. These things are within your circle of control. This is the innermost circle. And this is where you have direct power over. And actually, this is exactly where you need to spend most of your time, rather than complaining about the environment, drifting through jobs, social media comparison. Do you know there are some people whose high blood pressure has gone up because they saw their friend snap in front of a plane, or he saw a Jeep somewhere, he went to church, he snapped in front of the Jeep, and he says, hey, LG, life is good. You too, you see it, you say, this one too has 4 digits. You wouldn't know that it was a borrowed 2 minutes that they used to snap it, and your blood pressure begins to run up. For what? Now you leave the picture, and now you are looking for drugs to cure high blood pressure. So we need to be intentional. Lack of intentional planning also, I would say, affects this. So the key insight here is you may not control the environment, but you are responsible for your responses. Remember what I told you before. Remember what I said. That sometimes in life, what happens to you is not the problem. The problem is your response to what happens to you. Because life happens. And if you're in Nigeria, they will tell you Nigeria has happened to him. And when they, or Nigeria has happened to you. But Nigeria didn't happen to only you. It happened to every other person. But are you going through it gracefully, or are you going through it murmuring and grumbling? Because you need to have a good and a cheery heart, first of all. Like the scriptures will say, a cheery heart doeth good like a medicine. So the first part of it is your circle of control, and that you need to. And I think it was Harry Truman, the president of the United States, who said this. He said, the buck stops here. No matter what happens, I, as the president of the United States, I am responsible. I take responsibility for it. Okay, so we'll try to go forward a little bit. So pillar number one, how do you become the architect of your life? One, take ownership. Take ownership. You know, man is where we are today because Adam did not take ownership. Adam committed high treason. And when the time of reckoning came, he said, it is the woman you gave me. And now she came to the woman. Woman, why have you done this? He said, it is the serpent. Let me tell you the truth. Those who transfer responsibilities never rise on the scale of greatness. I repeat. Those who transfer responsibilities, they never rise on the scale of greatness. Once you transfer responsibility, and if you want to know people to promote in your office, give people jobs. They may do it, they may not do it. That's not the question, at least in the first instance. How you judge them is that, do they transfer responsibilities, or do they accept the responsibility and they're willing to improve themselves? Someone who transfers responsibilities. Okay. Sorry, could you mute yourself, please? Someone who transfers responsibilities would not rise high on the scale of greatness. Stop the blame cycle. It has to end with you. Now take responsibilities for your skills. What do you have? I was talking with one of my mentees one day, and I said, hey, how are you doing? He said, hey, I am in this situation because of my father. My father is not rich. My mother is poor. This is this. This is that. I said, hey, you are not fair to your father. You are not fair to your mother. Please stop that, and I don't want to hear that from you again for the rest of your life. You are born into this world. They've given you life. Now take it from here. As I speak to you, that student took responsibility. He's now doing his PhD in Canada. This person I'm talking to you is one of my mentees. But it began with him changing his mindset. At the beginning, when I met him, he was complaining about everything in the world. He's in his second year of his PhD program in Canada today. How about if he didn't change the way he was thinking? He wouldn't have changed his life, and he probably wouldn't be where he is today. So take responsibility for your skills. In life, there is nothing like something for nothing. You need to have something you need to exchange. Life is a marketplace. You need to exchange value. There's no need complaining. What do you have in your hand? It's what the prophet asked the woman. What is that you have? It always begins with something. It can be tangible, it can be intangible. Your time, for example, is intangible. What can you trade with your time? And even if you say, I've graduated from the university, I don't have a job. Yes, you don't have a job. Then go and volunteer. Volunteer. There are people who, through volunteering, eventually landed prime spots where they volunteered. It's happened before. I challenge you to read the autobiography of Les Brown. Read about him. He was born on the floor. The mother was a single parent, had him and his brother. born on the floor. I think it was in Florida. Read about his life. He started by volunteering because he was actually working in a studio as a black man. The job they gave him was to sweep. He was good enough to sweep, run errands, go and buy something. And someday, the white person who was call it the DJ or the person, he was in a radio station, was drunk. He was drunk. And the general manager called and said, hey, that man is drunk on a Friday night. He cannot be at the controls of a radio station, and he was speaking rubbish. He picked up the phone when his general manager called from home, and he said, who is there? He said, my name is Les Brown. He said, can you get somebody to do the job? He said, okay, he will call back. He said he dropped the phone. He went and called his mother. He said that time he had a girlfriend. He called his girlfriend. He said, please, in the next 5 minutes, go to your radio station. Leslie Brown is going to be there. And he had been practicing before that time. He called the general manager again and said, general manager, there's nobody in the studio, but I can do it. He said, but no, you are just an errand boy. He said, no, I can do it. And Les Brown said for the first time in his life, he took the controls of a radio station Friday night or something like that. And he started and said, hey, this is Les Brown. This is your triple S. There is none like me before me. There is none going to be after me. I'm here to give you something original. What you will hear today, you will never hear it again. By the time he finished, his general manager said he could not believe that Les Brown was the one who did that. He got that job from a cleaner. That's why I think it's in Latin, you have a saying that says, fortune favors the brave. Or sometimes it is also said that opportunity, success plus preparation plus opportunity is equal to success. But that preparation is yours to do. It's your cycle of control. The opportunity may or may not come exactly the way you want it. But if your opportunity comes now, will you be prepared? That's the question. So take responsibility for your skills. Take responsibility for your attitude. Take responsibility for your growth. These things, they look intangible, but in life, it is the intangibles that control the tangibles. I repeat one more time. In life, what many people say is, okay, I want more money, I want a car, I want a house, I want a this, I want a that. Hey, listen, the things you say you want are tangibles. But have you ever taken stock that it is the intangibles in your life that you trade with in order to secure the tangibles? Money is just a piece of paper. It's actually nothing. What makes money money is just the value. And that's why you call it a legal tender. Because it's saying that if you give this, the value that is printed on it is what they will give to you. It's really just a means of exchange. It's just a legal tender. But my question is, have you harnessed your skills? Sometimes you have skills, but you have a bad attitude. And sometimes, especially if you work in corporate sectors, when you are lower down, they look at your technical skills. But as you begin to grow up in managerial things, it's no longer what you can do. It's actually what you can do through other people. And that's what you are paid for. That's exactly what you are paid for. And that's where not just your technical skills count, but your attitude and your ability to influence others to be able to achieve company goals and objectives. And you have to take responsibility for your growth. I don't care whatever industry you belong or whatever industry you work in. You have to consciously invest in your growth. Growth is something you have to do. And even growth has become more and more critical. Even those who are at the cutting edge of their industry, they are continuously growing. They are continuously honing their skills. They are continuously learning. They are continuously going for seminars. That's the way life is. I'm sorry. There's no true resting place in this world until you are dead and gone. However, before you go, what impact are you able to make in your world? A statement is credited to Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was the one who created, Apple, and the iPhone, the iPod, and all those things. It's this company, Apple, that created all those things. But one of the things he said is that before I leave this world, I want to make a dent in my universe. He's dead and gone. But for example, here I have one. This is an iPhone here I use. Okay? But this iPhone will never have seen the light of day if somebody like Steve Jobs never ever existed in this world. If you see exactly what I mean. My question is, before you pass away, what is your contribution to this world? That's why we are talking about personally. Stop complaining about Tinubu. Stop complaining about T-Pain or whatever you call it. Those things, they are within your circle of concern. Focus on your life. And that's the reason why youth these days, you hear them say education is a scam. I heard some students say, I don't want to go to school again. After all, look at this person. He just brought out one hit track and he's having private jets. How many? Maybe 1 or 2% of people in the world are like that. You may not have that gift and that talent. Stop comparing yourself with them. But you may have been born naked, but you were never born empty. I repeat, you may have been born naked. In fact, all of us were born naked in this world. But you need to understand that you were never born empty. And if you were not born empty, my question to you is, take stock of what you were born with, because you were never born empty, even though you were born naked. Now, in terms of practical tools, do a personal audit on yourself. Remember, we are talking about personal leadership. Where am I now? That's the question. Where am I now? See, if you don't know where you are now, you will never know where you are going to go to. You have to take stock of your life. And this is what happened to me in my year 3, second semester. I began by telling you a personal story of my life. I took stock. I knew exactly where I was. I was dissatisfied. And I took a decision. I said, hey, my life is go in a different direction. And from then onwards, it took a different trajectory. And that's what I'm trying to tell you today. Can you sit down? I know our world is too busy. There is Instagram, there is Facebook. There are many, many things to distract you. I'm sorry, AI cannot do this one for you. These days, many people have become lazy because of AI. Someday they will say, AI, please, can you cook a goosey soup for me? It's coming. Just wait. I am tired from work. AI, can you cook a goosey soup for me? I'm sorry, there are some things AI can do, but there are some things you have to do yourself. The second thing is what is working and what is not working for you. They said the greatest fool in this world is, in fact, a definition of a fool. I attended my secondary school. Our commandant used to tell us those days. If we come to school, it's a military school. The commandant will come to the school. He said, a fool is a person that does not know that he does not know. I never forgot it. From secondary school, that's what my commandant used to tell us. He would say, a fool is a person that does not know and does not know that he does not know. If rain begins to beat you and you don't know where the rain started from, how will you know when essentially the rain is going to end? You are not going to know that. So you need to take a personal audit of your life. What is working and what is not working? And then you have to do the last step, replace excuses with action steps. I told you about what happened to me in my year 3 in the university. I could have given a lot of excuses. I could have said, oh, I failed Maths 102 and I failed Chem 102. I could have said a lot of things. I could have said, hey, my father is not Dangote. My mother is not Folorunsho Alakija. I could have said that and probably justified. So, yes, you have a lot of excuses. But what am I saying? Please replace your excuses with action steps. Responsibility is the price of greatness. Do you remember who said that? The name of the person who said that is someone that is called Winston Churchill. Many of you may have known Winston Churchill was a wartime hero, okay, who died, I think, in 1965 in the UK, a British citizen, who fought the war against Hitler and effectively won with the Allied forces. Sometimes I read a bit about history, but that statement is credited to Winston Churchill. Responsibility is the price of greatness. That's number one. 2, discipline. This is where the rubber meets the road. If you are not ready, this is the place that essentially will be a make or mark. Do you know there are some courses in the university that are make or mark courses? You can't graduate without them. You may have a problem in GST 101, lingua franca, but if it is your core engineering course, maybe you are doing strength of materials and all those kind of things, and you don't pass it, you can't graduate. This one is a major. Discipline. You do what must be done. You show up when you need to show up. Success is built on daily habits. It's not on motivation. Some people, they say, hey, they just hear this. Tomorrow morning, it will look like a Duracell battery has entered into them. They will begin to do Google. After 1 week, wow, they come down again. That's not exactly what we are talking about. We're not trying to give you a merry-go-round dose or a happy motivation tonic. That's not exactly what we want here. We're talking about lifelong decisions you have to take now, not tomorrow. Now, I mean. Because if you don't take the decision now, studies have proven that if you don't take decision at the pivotal area when you are challenged, you may never take it later on. And you will be like the man in the Bible who says, Paul, you almost persuade me to be a Christian. I will think about it at some other time. It calls for discipline and areas you need to focus if you want to do what must be done. One is time management. Have you ever understood in our lives that the king, the prince, the pauper, everybody has 24 hours? You have never seen anybody who has 30 hours and another person has 24. No, we all have 24 hours in our lives. Whether you're a big man or a small man, whether you're a rich man or a poor man. However, the way you use your 24 hours and the way another man uses 24 hours today may determine what he or she will become in future. Apart from time management, we need to focus on consistency. Have you ever tried employing some people? Or even you take some IT students, they resume work. They come the first week, they say the second week, they are tired or they are not going to go again. I remember somebody, when children are going to school for the first time, they are very happy. They see they sew uniform for them, you buy new bag. The child is extremely happy. After the child goes to school for 1 week, the next week you wake the child, go to school, say, I don't want to go to school again. I want to be at home. But that is when the child needs to go to school. He was happy about the new bag. He was happy about the new uniform. He's happy about the new shoe. Yes, but life is not about getting new things. Life is about showing up when you need to show up, when you need to be counted, doing what needs to be done. Another focus area we need to talk about in discipline is delayed gratification. There are some people, if they make money, honestly speaking, everybody will know. Because they are going to blow it. They will order pepper soup. They will sleep in a pepper soup joint. Friday night, People who have greatness in them delay gratification. In fact, I heard about a Jewish rabbi who said that if a big chunk of money comes to you, you never planned for, don't spend it in 90 days. cool off with it because you never had a plan for it. Somebody gifted you, an angel investor helped you. Just have a plan for it first. Because studies have shown that as it comes, you blow it the way it comes, you may never get it again that same way because you are not using that resource wisely. Delayed gratification means you delay that enjoyment until when you have a good plan and purpose. And after all, we are talking about your life here. And like they normally say in Nigeria, life no get duplicates. We don't have duplicates in life. We don't. Some practical tools that are non-negotiable. Learning. That's why they say readers are leaders. This is a skill that is dying. I give you an example. From time to time, I go to Europe. Europe, 15 years ago, when I walk in a train in Europe, when I used to see a lot of people reading books. This year, I had the privilege, I was also going to Europe, and I saw that less and less people are reading now in the train or in the metro. It's gradually being replaced with entertainment, with phones and the rest. Of course, some people still read with their phones. But what am I trying to tell you? I'm trying to tell you that reading, it's an essential part of life. And you need to upskill, side skill constantly if you want your life to go in the direction you want it to be. You also need to take care of the second thing, your health, because you cannot achieve anything if your health is in shambles. So your health is key. If you need to take a rest, you take the rest. If you need to drink a lot of water, you drink a water. If you need to take fruits and vegetables, you do that. You know, because at the end of the day, in a corporate organization, the highest they will give you is 1 minute. I don't know that you've seen them give people 2 minutes. No, they don't give you 2 minutes. They only give you how many minutes? 1. Just 1 minute. You also have, and this is where the rubber meets the road, work excellence. It's also critical. Whatever work you are given to do, you do it and do it to the best. In such a way that in fact, you tell yourself that you do it in such a way that you've done it to the best of your ability. This is what is required to be able to turn, I would say, the tide. A key line is this: your future is hidden in your daily routine. If I see your daily routine, then I can tell what your future will be. My father used to tell me before he died that you don't chase a black goat at night. If you want to chase a black goat, you do that during the day. Now, I just want to, for illustrative purposes, to compare two professionals. One is talented, but is inconsistent. Another one is average, but he's disciplined. I tell you the truth, the person who rises to the zenith is not the person who is much talented, but is inconsistent. It's the person who is average and is disciplined. And you can really see that with the Nigerian football team sometimes. When last did the Nigerian football team really make this country proud? Well, you can never take it away from them that individually, each of those footballers in their various clubs, they are superstars. But the question is, when you bring them together, are they all disciplined? Some other countries come 1 month, 2 months before a major competition like the World Cup. Some countries will just come 2 weeks or a week before a major tournament, and they think they are going to win. How? Who does that? How does it work? Because there is a synergy that usually needs to be created even in the team. If you see what I mean. Pillar number 3. Pillar number 3 talks about direction. I know where I am going. This is what pillar number 3 is all about. And when we're talking about personal leadership, we're not talking about being busy, but we're talking about being purposeful, having a direction for your life. There are many people that say, hey, if you give me this amount of money, I'm going to do this, I'm going to invest in shares, I'm going to get a house, I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to do business, I'm going to enter school. You just see that the person is a wandering star, going nowhere and will arrive at nothing. Focus gives blindness. I don't know if you know what I mean. Focus. Focus breeds clarity. And if you're going to achieve your dreams, you have to be extremely clear about what you want to achieve. And there are some focus areas you need. When I was in the university, they used to teach us, they used to tell us, they said, hey, if you cannot tell me, and my students, my mentorship class this morning, I told them this. I said, when I was in the university, we were told this. If we ask you about your purpose, and if you cannot tell us about your purpose in 1 minute, you are, they talk about 3% of the world that leads the 90 or the other 97% of the world. And they said, for you to be in the top 3%, many of the people, they are connected to their purpose. They know exactly their purpose. It's like an elevator pitch. You need to know in one purpose. And right when I was in school, I could write it in 1 minute. I will tell you exactly this is the purpose of my life. I had it written out. I knew it by heart. And in a minute or less, I could tell you if you asked me. And I think life starts with being. Life starts with a vision. What kind of life do I want? What do you want to do? It begins with that. That's your ethos. That's your value. It doesn't start with things. If you have things, it will come and go. Have you ever tried giving somebody a lot of money? Maybe you give somebody 2 million, 3 million. If the business the person has been doing is selling tomatoes of 50,000, that 2 million will reduce to that 50,000 because that person, the level is 50,000 bag of tomatoes. If you see what I mean. The other thing has to do with the career strategy, not just survival jobs. Especially for young professionals. And finally, it has to do with your personal values. Because no matter how high in life, charisma may take you up, but it is character that will keep you there. Yes, you can rise very high because you are charismatic, but the question is, what about your personal values? And that's exactly what counts. It's really bad to rise to the top of the ladder and to find out that at the top of the ladder is leaning on the wrong wall. And that wall needs to go down. If the wall goes down, you on the height of the ladder will have a big fall, like Humpty Dumpty. But God forbid, because that's not what God wants for us. So that's why personal values are critical in your ascent and in the fulfillment of your purpose. Now, for practical purposes, please do your best to have 1 year, 3 year, 5 to 10 year goals for yourself. I understand that the Japanese are one of those who do this a lot. Okay? And some questions you need to ask yourself, it's what problems do you want your life to solve and what do you want to be known for? I guess I'm going to stop here for today. It's already 20:32. It's to 9. Okay. I know that we have a lot. Probably someday we may have a part 2 of this. Such that, but however, I believe that we probably must have, I would say, learned a lot or gotten a lot from here today, because I still have a number of things I think I need to share with you, but probably we could have another part sometime or another day. as we like to respect the time of our listeners here today. So, on that note, I would want to wrap it up by saying thank you very much for connecting and thank you very much for listening. And I will be ready for your questions now. And probably someday we may be able to continue the other part. I don't know yet, but let us see if we would have a part two of this. Thank you very much. So I guess we need to go to the questions right now. Let's see. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box. And then we could probably take those questions in the chat box, or you could also probably raise up your hand. We'll see you, we'll call you, and then we can call you to ask your questions. Okay? In case you have any questions to ask, you can ask them now. Or you put them in the chat box. I guess that will probably help. Let's check the chat box. Do we have any questions in the chat box? I can't seem to find any question yet in the chat box. John Chukwuemeka, did you put the links in the chat box? John, are you here, please?
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir. I've placed it before. Let me repost it again.
Okay. I'm checking the chat box right now. Okay, yes, thank you very much. I can see your comments. Okay. Somebody said, how do you know your Ikigai or what you are meant to do? Okay, Ikigai normally, I think Ikigai is a Japanese terminology, let's put it that way. You know, the Japanese, they have a lot of constant improvement, I would say, words which they use, you know, because the Japanese, they are almost like perfectionists, if you see what I mean. So your question is, how do I, let me see if I can read it again. And let me check the chat box again. How do you know your Ikigai or what you are meant to do? Okay. All right. I can answer this question. How do you know what you are meant to do? First of all, there are several ways you can know what you are meant to do. And I can give you, I can tell you also with myself. Okay, but first, I probably need to define what Ikigai is for the majority of people who are here. Like I said, Ikigai is a Japanese word, okay, meaning Iki in Japanese language means life, and Gai means value or what. So Ikigai means what gives your life value, what gives your life meaning, or what gives your life joy. So, or in French, it is what is called la raison d'être in French, or in English, it's called a reason for being, or what makes life worth living. That's what Ikigai stands for the person who has asked the question. Now, the question is, how do I know my Ikigai? How do I know what I was meant to do or to be? Okay. One of them is what you love doing. What are you passionate about? That's it. That's the beginning point. What are you passionate about? Passion. There are some people, the way they play football, you see that they are passionate. And you can almost not take away football from there. So someone like that, he can, in fact, there was a doctor, I think it was Socrates in Brazil. I heard he was a medical doctor, but I heard he was a professional footballer also. So you can still hone your skills and still be in the passion where you have been called to. So one way of knowing your Ikigai, or knowing your passion, knowing what you were meant to do, la raison d'être, the reason for being, the value for life is what you love to do, your passion. Number two, how do you know that? It's what you are good at. You know, there was this lady, I've forgotten her name. There was one lady who cooked for 100 hours. Is it Basi or something like that in Nigeria? In Nigeria, I never knew in my life that somebody can be cooking for 100 hours. And I think she got into the Guinness Books of Records as a Nigerian. You know, Nigerian is known for many things, you know. But however, this person was known for cooking for 100 and broke, was it the world record or something? So the question is, what are you good at? And this talks about your skill and your talent. Remember, the first one talks about your passion. This second one talks about your talent, and it talks about your skill. The third thing, how do you know your Ikigai? What the world needs. Because the world has a way of calling forth from you what you need. And that's where your purpose is. That's your impact. You see what happened to Moses. Moses was an aristocrat, so to speak. He was in the palace, the son of Pharaoh's daughter. But each time, he felt more connected to the slaves that were being punished than being there. So that's your purpose, that's your impact. So what rhymes with your heart? What's in your DNA? There are some people, they cannot stand to see other people being cheated. They can just stand and begin to defend them. If you are someone like that, you may be called to be a social crusader, to fight for social justice, or to do something. Or your Ikigai can be your profession, what you can be paid for. So I hope that I've been able to answer your question, Ogonna Anika. Okay? Let's see if we have another question in the chat box. Here says, the secret of success is in your daily routine. Great point. Thank you for the insight. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. So now I can't find any. Okay. There's one more here. How can we expand our circle of control? Okay. This is another question on expanding the circle of control. So how do you expand your circle of control? One of them is this: spend more time, or remember I said investing 80% of your energy in your circle of control or your circle of influence. That's one way. A second way is minimize the energy spent on your circle of concern. Okay, you're concerned that fuel is 1,400, yes, but even if you have high blood pressure because of it, nobody's going to give you an award or a trophy to say, okay, you are worry master of Nigeria, #1, because fuel price is 1,400. Nobody is going to do that. You get it? So one way to expand your circle of control is to invest in it and to spend more time there. Okay? We will take some speeches now. I see we have 2 hands up, so we're going to take the 2 hands. We'll take the last question in the chat box before we take this one. It says, can your circle of control in any way affect your family negatively? For example, you don't give much money to your family as usual because you want to build yourself. Is it also right? I would say no. I would say no, because many people in life, they have gone through life solo in trying to build wealth. Eventually, when they are old, the same family are the same family people they run to at the end of the day, if you see what I mean. So there is something called a balance, you know. Balance is the key of life. And for me, in fact, even the Bible says it, a man who cannot take care of himself, his family is worse than an infidel, if you see exactly what I mean. So the fact that we talk about, yes, focusing on your circle of control, it's a mistake many people do. You forget your wife, you forget your children, and let's face it, these people, The children didn't beg you to bring them into the world. So if you brought them into the world, you are fully 100% responsible to take care of them. Do the best of your ability. You understand me? Nobody's asking you to compare with Dangote or whatever. But at least the little you have to share it for them. And that includes the intangibles. I'm talking about your time, your efforts, and the rest of them, because you see some of the things that happen. A number of people, they chase their dreams, but at the end of the day, the child who they took to good schools end up, in fact, there are people, they make a lot of money, they give it to the child. The child is 30 years old, you've worked and died and willed the whole money to the child. The child never had any proper training, neither had any connection. Eventually, that child reduces that money. When I was small, I used to hear of MK Abiola. He had Concord newspapers, he had Concord Hotel, he had IT, he had many things. I'm sorry, but as soon as Abiola died, in fact, we had Concord bookshops those days in Lagos. As soon as he died, all those things seem to have disappeared. Okay, so we will take the people who have raised up their hands. Number one, Obas Henry. Obas Henry, please. I see your hand is up. Can you unmute your microphone and ask your question? If Obas Henry is not ready, we have Sam Kasim. Good evening, sir. You can please unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay, there are two hands that are up. Any of you can unmute your microphone and ask your questions, please. For the two hands that are up.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Go ahead, please.
All right. Thank you for the speech, sir. And we appreciate the effort you've actually put in delivering this. It was very, very awesome and commendable, sir. I didn't really have much. My own question is on the aspect of taking ownership, and in lieu with the environment we are, most especially in Nigeria, there are some certain factors, whether in an organization or you are trying to build your own empire or you're working for yourself. There are some factors that in Nigeria today now that I don't know how do we describe all these factors that help to impair no matter effort or no matter anything you want to put in, irrespective of your skill and some other things. Discover that those factors, probably because the way the country is, those factors still stand against you being able to realize and being able to do that which you want to do. Most especially, let's say for company. So with this, how can you explain? How can you elucidate more on taking ownership? Especially considering the factor. Maybe I should be a little bit cite an example. In a company where you're working, you are trying to put in all effort. Sometimes some of the decisions you take, they are not seen it to be so tangible enough.
Okay.
And these are decisions that can actually help those companies, but they are not seeing it, probably because of penny wise, pound foolish, or some other things, some other factors like that, as relating to Nigerian factors. Okay. In those cases, what can you do?
Okay.
What can you do?
All right. Thank you, Henry Obas. Yes, you are right. In a sense, and I say in a sense, that you could be, like you said, working in a place and it doesn't appear as though your efforts are appreciated. But let me tell you two things. I want to speak about two things about this. First of all, you need to understand what I've been talking about here about ownership is, as much as possible, shifting your eyes from the environment circle of concern, because you can't control the company. Moving it into your circle of control. And what is your circle of control? You know, sometimes they tell you when you go through the university, allow the university to go through you. When you are in that company or wherever you are, yes, you are going through that company, but allow the company to go through you. Because tomorrow, it could be the skills you have learned there that you are going to use to set up, because you were talking of setting up. I take the story of Rain Oil. I think it's Engineer Gabriel, which he was working for, I think, for Ascon for like 5 years. But eventually he came out and built something a bit more mega than them. So your true worth, it's not really what you are paid. Your true worth, it's the knowledge, the value you get from that organization. And that nobody can really take it away from you. And that is the truth. So, and that's exactly what we are saying, because when you put all your energy on your negatives, your energy, your anxiety goes up, your stress increases, and you go down. But rather, it's like a Jacob walking with Laban. It's the same thing. But eventually, Jacob didn't die in Laban's house. So what I'm trying to say is, that's not the end of your life. That's just a phase in your life. See it as such. Get all the lessons that you can get there. Learn everything you need to learn, because the skills you have there, it's what we need tomorrow. I was watching this program that just held I think it's the platform or something like that, about the owner or the CEO of Money Point. He was talking about when he was in InterSwitch. At the time when InterSwitch came, InterSwitch seemed to be the best thing that happened in Nigeria. But today, it has more. In fact, there has been a metamorphosis, and it has grown from there into owning Money Point, which I believe today is a unicorn. You know what a unicorn is? A company that has hit about $1 billion. So don't focus about the things you are going to. Many times it is that discomfort that eventually drives you sometimes to be able to achieve that which you want to achieve. Rather than being in a comfort zone, everything is okay, you're not thinking of tomorrow. There are people who have retired in places that have comfort zone. They pay them a lot of money, gratuity, maybe, and when they take the money, they went and put it in business. And unfortunately, it's 419 they met, because throughout their life, they've never done it. If they drink tea in the morning, they eat lunch in the afternoon, they drink tea in the afternoon. And that's how their life has been. They have been like aristocrats. And now they retire, they want to go out, they want to go and face Oluwole. You know Oluwole now, what he will do. I hope that helps. So we take the last question now. Sir Sam Kasim, please. Your hand.
All right, Mike, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. That was a brilliant presentation.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure I can hear you again here on the chat box, and then maybe we can call it a day. We share these materials eventually later. I don't know about how it will be, but please click. John, can you share? If you want the materials, please click on the Aspire for Excellence WhatsApp group. Click to join. We're going to share the materials for you there so that you can have it. The last question here is this. Please, how do you know that you are making progress in life generally? Okay, this is a good question. How do you know you are making progress in life? First, you are not making progress in life because you compare yourself with others. You know, you have what they call I pass my neighbor. And because you have I pass my neighbor generator, so you have light from I pass my neighbor, your neighbor doesn't have. And so you think you made progress. No, that's not exactly what we are. See, in life, you compete with yourself. You're not competing with others. And I repeat again, in life, you compete, because I said you may have been born naked, but you are not born empty. In life, you come full. Actually, you are supposed to die empty at your death. Because when you were born full of gifts and talents. And at the point of your dying and leaving this world, you are supposed to be empty. You must also, the books you need to write, you must have written them. The songs you need to sing, you must have sung them. The children you need to bring up to be great statesmen of the country, of their family, of the society, you must have brought them. You must have impacted your world. So how do you know you are? First of all, you need to have a vision for your life. What is your purpose? What are you called to do? When I mean called, what do you have? Are you passionate about? What is your gift? What is your talent? It's not something you can compare with that. Unfortunately, AI cannot do this for you. You have to sit down and do it for yourself. If you see exactly what I'm saying. And for the most part, making progress is linked to your purpose. If you're a Christian, pray to God, know what is your purpose in life. Or find out your passion, find out your gifts, find out your talents. It could be your profession. But I'm in this profession, maybe I'm a medical doctor or something, and my purpose is, to be used, to nourish or to help people who are ill or sick. Sometimes it can be in the line of your profession. Why not? But you need to find that. No one can find it for you. Sometimes you can discover it by thinking about your life, what people have said that, hey, you have this gift, you have this talent, hey, you are passionate about this, hey, this is your profession, and this is what, and you do it effortlessly. This is what you do, even if they don't pay you. I met somebody one day, he said, this job, I love it. I can do it even without being paid. Even if they say they won't pay, I will do this job and I will love to do it. So that's one way, and I hope, and making progress is improving in the direction of that your gifts, your calling, your purpose, if you see what I mean. And that's how you know you are making progress. And you get fulfillment, because fulfillment is not something money can buy. Fulfillment is gotten in the place of your purpose. And it's not by comparing yourself with other people, please. I'm talking about yourself. You find and you get fulfillment from that thing. And fulfillment doesn't mean money, if you see what I mean. I was saying about Mother Teresa the other day. She had about 3 pairs of clothes or something like that. But for many people, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. She had a world award and the Nobel Peace Prize. But she gave out her life. That was her dream, and she fulfilled her purpose. So on that note, I want to say a big thank you to every one of you who have connected, who have found time. Probably maybe someday we may be able to have a part 2 of this. I really cannot tell, but I really, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say a big thank you to every one of you who have taken out your time today to connect on this episode. For me, this is my first session in the Aspire for Excellence Foundation. I have never, since we started many years ago, I have never taken anyone. This is the very first one I have taken. And because it was impressed on me to be able to do it, I hope you have found it, will I say useful, impactful, and I hope it's been able to reshape, I would say, your life. So thank you very much for taking out some time to be here. We'll share the materials to you on the WhatsApp group, and we hope to see you live a happy, fulfilled life. Thank you very much.